Hey there guys, welcome to part 3 of our clinical radiology applications overview series. My name is Mohammed. I'm one of the RadCast co-founders. If you haven't already, make sure to watch part 1 because that's our general overview. Part 2 focuses on the multi-specialty recruitment assessment. This part is going to focus on the interview, and part 4 is going to focus on the portfolio. So let's get started. So like I said, this is all about the interview and in essence what the interview was like for the 2022-2023 cycle, and just our general top advice for the interview in terms of what you should realistically expect. So in the 2022-2023 cycle, it was a 15-minute interview station similar to previous years, held over Microsoft Teams, split into 4 parts. Part A was a commitment to specialty question. Part B looked at how you coped with pressure and managing uncertainty through an ethical scenario. Similarly, Part C looked at your team involvement, which could have been asked directly or through an ethical scenario. And finally, Part D looked at your attributes and skills. And for those of you who are more mathematically inclined than us at RadCast, you may have seen that if you add Part A to Part D time, that leaves you with 1 minute, which was used to add anything else that you felt could support your application that you hadn't mentioned in the previous 14 minutes. Now, when it came to a breakdown of the marks by section, you can see them on your screen, with obviously Part B and C given more marks because that's a longer portion of your interview. Like that's, if you remember back in school where the teacher would ask you to explain your working out in like maths, that's where you got the majority of the marks. It had more time for these parts of the interview, so that gets you more marks. The maximum marks was 60, and there is a cutoff score. All right, you can't just get 1 out of 60 and be like, yo, doesn't matter, I'm gonna get ranked. It doesn't work like that. You have to reach a certain minimum rank in terms of a cutoff score for you to be deemed eligible to go to the ranking process, in the sense that you are now eligible to even get ranked on Oriel. So you had to get 37 out of 60 in the 2022-2023 application cycle. That was similar to the year before. And honestly, you shouldn't be put off by this score. It's just a bit over half marks, but if you're getting under this, you're doing something very horribly wrong in your interview. So it should be very simple and quite straightforward to meet the cutoff score for the interview. Now, when it comes to the different parts, Part A being the commitment specialty part of the interview, it's very straightforward, right? It's not rocket science. It's like, why do you want to be a radiologist? Talk about the different things that interest you, whether it's research, whether it's the diagnostic uncertainty, being able to put all this, the evidence together with the imaging to form a differential diagnosis, critical thinking, etc. You name it, you can kind of talk about why you want to do it when it comes to a career in radiology. Of course, we are very biased in what we'd recommend, but our podcasts do cover a lot of different topics when it comes to radiology, things such as the role of artificial intelligence, gamification in radiology, and even some of our earlier pieces of work we've talked about, like skills mix, etc. You can kind of learn about the different facets of radiology and kind of use what you've learned and bring it into your interview answers. And of course, whilst your portfolio has been already marked at this stage, the interviews do not know your portfolio score. So it's on you to bring up your achievements from your portfolio to show why you're committed to radiology. For example, you've got publications, you've done research, you've done audits, you may have a postgraduate degree in radiology or a pre-medical degree in radiology. You may have done teaching specific to radiology, an elective in radiology. All of this should come out in Part A of your interview. Similarly, Part B and C, same as the year before. So in the 2022-2023 cycle, they used to ask ethical scenarios around these 2 parts of the interview. For example, team involvement, coping with pressure, and managing uncertainty. Or they would ask for your experience in dealing with these elements. So tell me a time when you have dealt with X, when you've been involved in a team, for example. And then you talk about it from your experiences, what you've learned, basically the journey you went on to learn the skills required to deal with this in the future, and finally what you have developed that you could potentially bring to radiology. Finally, part D, the attributes and skills. Basically, what do you have that you have developed from an attribute or a skill that you think you can bring to radiology or you feel is relevant to radiology? Once again, not a difficult question if you've prepared, but a classic interview type of question. And of course, if you haven't already by this stage, you need to read the person specification because it clearly tells you what skills and attributes they're looking for, whether it's communication, leadership, teamwork, prioritization. You need to have examples ready to highlight how you've developed that skill and why it's relevant for radiology. And then finally, any additional info. Now, this isn't a point where, unfortunately, a lot of candidates who haven't had much practice with interview, they use this 1 minute to kind of just regurgitate at 100 miles per hour their CV. This isn't Fast and Furious, okay? It's not like, okay, let's go. Interviewer 1, I have done X, Y, and Z since I was back in first year medical school. They'll be like, what? Relax, what's going on? This is where you kind of give the creme de la creme on your portfolio to the interviewers. Be like, listen, you may have not had an opportunity to hear, but I beat Usain Bolt in the Olympics. Of course, that's a lie. He's the world record holder, and they will quickly call you up on your nonsense and BS. But it's something where you tell your proudest achievement that you feel is relevant to show why you should be in a radiology training program. It could be achievements, it could be relevant projects. For example, I wasn't able to mention in my previous answers, but just to let you know, I'm currently working on a new AI project looking at identification of lung nodules through radiomics and use of AI technology, so whatever fancy words you want to use. That will show your commitment and will bump you up because you're selling yourself, all right? It's a minute to add anything on to sell yourself. And that's the whole point of this final 1 minute additional info. So this is probably the shortest video in our series. And there's a reason why. The interview part of the application process is probably the one that candidates struggle with the least because this is your opportunity to really sell yourself. So it takes a lot of reflection to look at your achievements and try to link them to the interview domains. You'll have done the hard MSRA. You'll have collated all the evidence by now for your portfolio. This is the final part of the jigsaw, and one that candidates really actually find quite enjoyable because they get an opportunity to talk about themselves and sell themselves from a radiology perspective. But of course, the interview prep for this is different to the other parts of your application process. And of course, we do facilitate one-to-one interview sessions. But once again, this should be only something on your mind once you've done the MSRA and the portfolio. It doesn't take long to prepare for the interview, just maybe a few hours here or there, but practice is key. Vocalizing, verbalizing your answers, not in front of a mirror, hopefully with someone, either through us or maybe another radiology colleague that you've met in the taster week, but actually articulating your answers to get real meaningful feedback. And of course, like I said, by the point you reach the interview, you're now seeing the finish line. Don't give up now. You're so close, all right? One more hurdle left. Get as many points as you can because that could help differentiate between you getting your first ranked to you getting your second ranked. Of course, congratulations, you're getting a offer, but you obviously want your top ranked offer. And for those of you who may have just scraped through the MSRA and have like an average portfolio, this is your time to shine. Get those marks back by selling yourself as a budding radiologist. So once again, get in touch with us, hello@radcast.co.uk. We'll walk through what stage of the application you're at and what meaningful, constructive, personalized support we can give you. So that's part 3 done. Finally, in part 4, we'll be covering the portfolio, the changes to the portfolio, and how you can maximize your portfolio for this year's application. Take care, guys.